You are barefoot, not because you can't afford sandals. You own sandals. You just stopped caring about them somewhere along the way, and now the stone streets of Athens press cold and familiar against the soles of your feet. And you honestly can't remember why anyone would want it any other way. The city smells like olive oil and bread and the particular kind of dust that only exists here, in this place, in this century, in this one extraordinary corner of the world. Around you, men in fine robes rush to the assembly. Merchants haggle over fish. Children chase dogs through the market. Everyone is busy. Everyone has somewhere to be. You stop a man in the street. He's a politician, well-dressed, respected. His name is on the lips of half the city. You ask him a question, not a threatening question, not a rude question, just a simple, honest question about what he believes, about what justice really means, about whether he actually knows what he thinks he knows. And within 5 minutes, he's red in the face and walking away fast, muttering under his breath. You watch him go. You're not sorry. You're curious. You're always curious. This is what it feels like to be you, to be Socrates of Athens, the most dangerous man in the world's most dangerous city. Not dangerous because you carry a weapon. Dangerous because you carry a question. But before we get to the questions, before we get to the trial and the poison and the choice that will echo for 2,500 years, we need to go back to the beginning, back to a boy growing up in the dust and noise of a city that is about to change the world. You are born around 470 BC in Athens, Greece. Your father's name is Socrates. He is a stonemason and sculptor, a man who works with his hands, who shapes raw stone into something lasting. Your mother is Phanerete. She is a midwife, a woman whose entire job is helping new life come into the world. You will spend years thinking about what that means, about how your own life's work is a kind of midwifery, helping ideas be born in the minds of others rather than planting ideas of your own. But that's later. For now, you are just a boy in Athens, and Athens is the most alive place on earth. This city is in its golden age. The Parthenon is being built on the hill above you. Pericles, the great statesman, is at the height of his power. Playwrights are staging tragedies that will still be read 25 centuries from now. Mathematicians and astronomers and architects are all colliding in the same streets where you walk. Athens is electric with ideas, and you absorb all of it like a sponge. You learn your father's trade for a while. There are ancient stories that you actually carved some of the statues that stand in Athens, though no one knows which ones. You learn what it means to work with something stubborn and unyielding, to chip away at it patiently until something beautiful emerges. Years later, you'll approach human ignorance the exact same way, one careful question at a time. Your mother is a midwife, and you will later compare yourself to her. You will say that you don't give birth to ideas. You help other people give birth to theirs. You call it maiutics, the art of the intellectual midwife. You inherited her job just in a different material. You are not beautiful. This matters in Athens, where physical appearance is taken seriously, and beauty is considered a reflection of inner virtue. You are short and stocky. Your nose turns upward. Your eyes bulge slightly. Aristophanes, the comedian, will one day put you in a play and make your ugly face the punchline of multiple jokes. But you walk through the streets with a kind of calm confidence that people can't quite explain. There's something about you that makes people stop. Something that makes them want to listen, even when they don't want to answer. You have an appetite for learning that borders on obsession. Plato later writes that you eagerly hunted down the writings of Anaxagoras, the great philosopher of nature. You study rhetoric with a woman named Aspasia, one of the most brilliant minds in Athens, who also happened to be the partner of Pericles himself. You are not supposed to be learning from a woman. You do it anyway. From the beginning, you refuse to follow the script that Athens wrote for you. You are 38 years old when they send you to war. Athens is locked in a slow, grinding conflict with Sparta. The Peloponnesian War, a city-state called Potidæa, a former ally, has revolted, and Athens needs soldiers. You pick up your shield. You put on your armor. You march north with the army, barefoot even now, through terrain that would have broken younger men. You are a hoplite. A heavy infantry soldier. You stand in a formation called a phalanx, shoulder to shoulder with the men around you, shields overlapping, spears forward, and you hold the line. The whole system depends on everyone holding the line. One man breaks, and the formation collapses. You never break. In the camp during the siege of Potidæa, your fellow soldiers watch you with a mix of admiration and bafflement. A severe frost comes, the kind that makes water freeze in cups and turns breath to steam. Everyone wraps themselves in everything they own. You walk around in your same thin cloak, barefoot on frozen ground, not performing toughness, just genuinely unbothered. One night, you stand completely still for an entire day and night, from dawn to the next dawn. You're thinking, working through some problem in your mind. Soldiers gather to watch, taking bets on when you'll move. You don't move until the following morning, when you say a prayer to the sun and walk away. That story will be told for centuries. But here is the moment that history actually records. There is a young man in your unit. His name is Alcibiades. He is in his early 20s, brilliantly talented, devastatingly handsome. Raised by Pericles himself after his father died in battle, he will one day become one of the most consequential and controversial figures in Athenian history. But right now, he is a soldier in your care, and in the chaos of combat at Potidæa, he goes down. Wounded, exposed, about to die. You don't hesitate. You stand over him, shield raised, holding off the enemy while he can't protect himself. You don't retreat. You don't calculate the odds. You plant your feet in the blood-soaked dirt of Potidæa, and you stay there until Alcibiades can be pulled to safety. Alcibiades himself will later say at a dinner party in front of everyone that nobody but Socrates saved his life that day. The generals want to give you the prize for valor, the official recognition of the bravest man in the battle. You decline. You insist they give it to Alcibiades instead. When Alcibiades protests and says the award belongs to you, you are more eager than anyone to see him receive it. The man who will be condemned for corrupting the youth of Athens just spent 3 years in brutal military conditions, refused a Medal of Honor, and saved a young man's life with his own body. Remember that. You fight again at the Battle of Delium in 424 BC. Athens loses. The retreat turns into a rout. Soldiers throwing down weapons and running. Not you. Laches, one of the Athenian generals, watches you during that retreat and later says that if every man under his command had fought the way you did, Athens would never have been defeated. Alcibiades, riding past on horseback, sees you moving through the chaos with such complete calm that the enemy doesn't even pursue you. They look at you and choose easier targets. You fight a third time at Amphipolis in 422 BC. You are 48 years old, still marching, still holding the line. Then the wars wind down and you come home, and you trade your spear for a question. Somewhere in the middle of your life, perhaps in your 40s, something happens that changes everything. Your oldest friend, a man named Chaerephon, makes the journey to Delphi. Delphi is where the oracle of Apollo lives, the most sacred and respected prophet in the Greek world. Kings and generals travel there before every major decision. The oracle's words are treated as the voice of the god himself. Chaerephon has a question, a bold, specific, slightly absurd question. He asks the oracle whether there is anyone in Athens wiser than Socrates. The Pythia, the priestess who speaks for Apollo, gives her answer. No one is wiser than Socrates. Chaerephon comes back to Athens and tells you, and your reaction is not pride, it is confusion, because you know with absolute certainty that you are not wise. You know that you don't know anything important. You spent your whole adult life being aware of how much you don't understand. How can the oracle, who cannot lie because the oracle speaks for a god, how can it call you the wisest man? You decide to prove it wrong. You go to a politician, a man famous for his wisdom, respected by the whole city. You talk to him. You ask him careful questions, and you discover within the conversation that this man believes he knows things he absolutely does not know. He has opinions. He has confidence. But underneath the confidence, there is nothing. And when you gently, methodically expose this gap, he is furious at you, and the people watching are whispering that Socrates must be even wiser than anyone thought. You go to a poet, same result. You go to a craftsman. The craftsman actually knows his craft, genuinely knows it, but he has made the mistake of assuming that because he knows how to make things with his hands, he also understands justice and beauty and the meaning of life. He does not. And slowly, painfully, through hundreds of these conversations, you arrive at the only conclusion that makes sense. The oracle was right, but not in the way you expected. You are wiser than the others, not because you know more. You are wiser because you know that you know nothing. Everyone else carries the extra weight of false certainty. You travel light. This becomes your mission, not to teach people what to think, to help them see what they actually don't know, to strip away the comfortable illusions, to ask the question nobody wants answered. Athens will never forgive you for it. You walk the agora every day, the marketplace, the center of Athenian life. You stop anyone who will talk to you, rich men, poor men, slaves, foreigners, generals, teenagers. You have no favorites. Everyone gets the same treatment. Everyone gets the question. You call yourself a gadfly, like the fly that lands on a horse and bites it to keep it moving. Athens is the horse, large, powerful, noble, but prone to falling asleep in comfortable ignorance. You are the fly. Your job is to bite. Young men start following you around, not because you offer classes, you don't. Not because you charge money, you refuse. They follow you because watching Socrates dismantle a pompous politician in a public conversation is the best entertainment in the city. They imitate your style. They start asking uncomfortable questions of their own elders. The elders are not pleased. Plato is one of these young men. So is Xenophon, who will become a famous historian and general. So is Alcibiades, whom you already saved on a battlefield. and who is now a rising political star. These men will carry your ideas forward into the centuries. But right now, they are just young Athenians sitting in the dust of the marketplace, watching their teacher drive another respected citizen absolutely crazy. In 403 BC, a comedian named Aristophanes stages a play called The Clouds. The main character is called Socrates. He runs a school called the Thinkery. He teaches young men to use clever arguments to avoid paying their debts. He is portrayed as a fraud, a sophist, a corrupter. The audience laughs. You are in the audience. The historical accounts say you stand up so the crowd can compare your face to the mask the actor is wearing. You are not insulted. You find it interesting. But not everyone is laughing. Some of Athens' most powerful men are watching you. Men whose sons have come home from conversations with you, asking inconvenient questions. Men whose authority rests on the assumption that they know what they're doing. Men who have sat across from you in the market and walked away looking foolish in front of their peers. These men are building a case, and Athens itself is fracturing. The Peloponnesian War has ended in humiliation. Sparta defeated Athens. A brutal group of oligarchs called the 30 Tyrants briefly seized power, murdered hundreds of citizens, and terrorized the city. Democracy has been restored, but the trauma is raw. Athenians are frightened and angry and looking for somewhere to direct it. A man who spends his days questioning the gods and undermining the authority of established wisdom is a very convenient target. It is 399 BC. You are 70 years old. 3 men bring formal charges against you. A poet named Melodus, a politician named Anytus, an orator named Lycon. The charges are clear: impiety, failing to respect the gods of Athens, and corrupting the youth of the city. You will stand trial in front of a jury of 500 Athenian citizens. The trial lasts a single day. Under Athenian law, you have the right to speak in your own defense. You could hire someone to write you a speech, something flattering and apologetic, calculated to win sympathy. Every other defendant does this. You do not. You say you will simply tell the truth. You walk into that courtroom the same way you walked into every marketplace conversation for the past 30 years. Curious, unhurried, unafraid. Your defense is extraordinary. You do not apologize. You explain. You tell the story of the oracle at Delphi. You explain that your mission of questioning is not an attack on Athens, but a service to it. You remind them of your military service. 3 battles, held the line every time. You say that what you do in the marketplace is no different from what you did in the phalanx. You are stationed at a post. The god stationed you there. Deserting would be wrong. You tell them that you will not stop asking questions, not for any verdict, not for any threat. You tell them that the unexamined life is not worth living. 500 men vote on your fate. 280 vote to convict. 220 to acquit. You lose, but barely. Now comes the second vote, the penalty. Your accusers want death. You are allowed to propose an alternative. Your friends beg you to suggest exile, or at least a fine. Something manageable, something that lets you live. You suggest the city should reward you with free meals for life, as they give to Olympic champions, since you have spent your life serving Athens more faithfully than any athlete. The jury is furious. More of them now vote for death than voted for conviction. You have just been sentenced to die. And your reaction, as recorded by the people who were there, is calm, almost serene. You turn to the men who voted against you and you tell them something remarkable. You tell them that no genuine harm can come to a good man, whether in life or in death, and that their decision will damage Athens far more than it will ever damage you. There are 30 days between your sentencing and your execution. A religious festival is underway, and no executions can take place during it. So, you wait. Your friends are not waiting calmly. One of them, a wealthy man named Crito, comes to your cell. He has a plan. The guards have been bribed. A boat is waiting. You can be in Thessaly before dawn. You can live out your days in safety and comfort, far from Athens. All you have to do is walk out the door. You won't do it. You explain why with the kind of clarity that only comes from a man who has spent his whole life thinking about exactly this kind of question. You have lived your whole life under the laws of Athens. You benefited from those laws. You raised your children under those laws. To run now would be to say that the laws only apply when they favor you. It would be to become exactly the kind of dishonest, self-serving man you spent your life arguing against. It would make everything you ever said a lie. You will not give Athens the satisfaction of making you a hypocrite. Your friends sit with you in those final days. Plato is there. The conversations recorded from those last weeks are among the most remarkable documents in human history. You talk about the soul, about whether death is something to be feared. You argue with your characteristic mix of logic and calm that a philosopher should not be afraid to die, because philosophy itself is a kind of practice for death, a daily practice of detaching the mind from the physical world. You have been practicing your whole life. On the last day, your wife Xanthippe and your 3 sons come to say goodbye. You send them home. You don't want the crying. You want to die the way you lived, thinking clearly, talking honestly, surrounded by people who are willing to ask the hard questions. The executioner brings the cup of hemlock, a poisonous plant, brewed into a drink. You take it without hesitation. Your friends are weeping. You tell them to stop. You walk around the room until your legs feel heavy. You lie down. The numbness moves upward through your body, slow and steady. You keep talking until you can't. Your last words, according to Plato, are an instruction to Crito to make a small offering to Asclepius, the god of healing. Scholars have debated what that means for 2,000 years. Some say you were joking, calling death a cure for life's illness. Some say you were simply being careful, fulfilling a small religious duty, even at the very end. Some say it was one last question, left open on purpose for everyone who came after. That feels right. One last question with no answer, forcing the world to think. Here's what happened after they killed you. Every major school of philosophy that emerged in the ancient world, the Stoics, the Cynics, the Skeptics, almost all of them claimed to be continuing your work. Your students built libraries and academies and wrote millions of words trying to describe what you were doing in those barefoot conversations in the marketplace. Plato wrote the dialogues, putting your words down on paper for the first time, and those dialogues became the bedrock of Western thought. Aristotle learned from Plato and went on to shape everything from logic to biology to politics. Thomas Aquinas, Benjamin Franklin, Martin Luther King Jr. They all drew from the well you dug. And the Socratic method, your simple practice of asking questions until the truth becomes unavoidable. is still being taught in law schools and medical schools and philosophy departments right now, today, 25 centuries after you sat barefoot in the Athenian dust and asked a politician what he actually meant by justice. You wrote nothing down. You built nothing. You held no office. You accumulated no wealth. You were short and ugly, and your wife apparently found you exhausting, and the most powerful city in the Western world eventually decided you were too dangerous to keep alive. And yet, here we are, still talking about you, because you understood something that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That the most important thing you can do with a human mind is not to fill it with answers. It's to teach it to love the question. You knew that you knew nothing, and that turned out to be enough to change everything.